Imagine waking up at 4 a.m. in a freezing cold, completely empty basketball gym.
Yes. No, thank you.
Right. But just picture it. You are drilling the exact same footwork, like the exact same baseline pivot that you've known since you were 12 years old. And the whole time, you are actively convincing yourself that you have absolutely zero natural talent.
Which is wild to even think about.
It is. You're working with this desperate, paranoid energy of a player who is literally on the verge of being cut from the team. Now, imagine doing all of that, when you were already Kobe Bryant.
That mental framing is just, it's astounding when you really look at it. You have someone widely considered one of the greatest athletes in human history deliberately engineering a state of profound inadequacy just to get through a morning workout.
Exactly. Which completely upends the usual roadmap we're given for success.
Oh, absolutely.
We're constantly sold this idea that success is like a neat, predictable formula. You input a certain amount of confident effort, and you get this guaranteed reward. Well, welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive created just for you. Today, our mission is to shortcut your path to being deeply well-informed by extracting a massive, life-changing paradox hidden in this really fascinating essay titled The Ground Beneath the Fruit.
And, the author of this essay does something pretty remarkable. They pull together ancient philosophers, sports legends, behavioral strategists, all to argue that our modern obsession with tracking outcomes is actually destroying our ability to achieve greatness.
Yeah, and the whole argument hinges on a foundational idea from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Right, the Stoic.
Exactly. He wrote that the fruit of a human life is simply good character and acts for the common good. That's it. The harvest, the actual outcomes, the wealth, the recognition, the victory, all of that is entirely out of our control.
To a modern professional, that sounds like a recipe for total passivity.
Yeah, just give up.
Right. But Aurelius is actually counseling extreme precision here. He is demanding that we put our energy exclusively into the variables we can actually touch and just, release our death grip on the rest.
Okay, let's unpack this because this sets up the central paradox of the essay, which is how does letting go of the outcomes actually make you more effective?
It's a great question.
To figure that out, we have to start at the very beginning of any endeavor. Before we can even dream about a harvest, we have to talk about how we prepare the ground, which brings us right back to Kobe Bryant at 4 a.m.
Yeah, and the reason Kobe's routine is so crucial here is that it illustrates the absolute necessity of separating preparation from performance.
Two different things.
Completely different domains. Preparation is the domain of reality. It's the laboratory where you have to confront exactly what you don't know.
Right.
Where your skills just break down.
Right.
If you carry pride or ego into your preparation, it becomes this massive liability.
Because pride tricks you into stopping. Like you hit a plateau and your ego whispers, you're good enough, you don't need to drill this weekend layup again, and the growth just stops.
Exactly.
But then the second Kobe stepped onto the court for an actual game, that extreme humility just vanished. He performed with this unshakable, almost ferocious confidence that he was the greatest player on the planet.
Yeah, the Black Mamba alter ego.
Right. And to the outside observer, that looks like a wild personality disorder. How do you reconcile being profoundly humble in the morning and fiercely arrogant at night?
Well, you reconcile it by understanding that when the stadium lights go on, the time for doubt just has to die.
Wow.
The analysis is over. In the arena, humility becomes its own kind of sabotage. You have to trust that the preparation is locked into your nervous system. And what's fascinating here is the biological layer beneath all this invisible preparation.
Oh, the sleep research stuff.
Yeah. The essay brings in Matthew Walker, the renowned sleep researcher, and he points out a mechanism most of us completely misunderstand. We think sleep is just for recovery after learning, right?
Yeah, that's what I always thought. You study, you sleep, you remember it.
Exactly. But Walker shows that the brain actually requires sleep before learning.
Wait, I need you to break that down. How does sleep prepare the brain to learn beforehand?
So it comes down to the hippocampus, which acts like a short-term memory inbox for your brain.
Okay.
If you don't sleep, that inbox is completely full. You can't fit any new information inside.
Like a full hard drive.
Exactly like that. But during the deep stages of sleep, your brain physically transfers those files from the short-term hippocampus into the long-term storage of the cortex.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that physical mechanism clears out the short-term cache. So you wake up with a brain acting like a dry sponge, literally having created the physical space necessary to absorb new neural pathways.
That's incredible.
Right. So preparation isn't just a metaphor for trying hard. It is a required biological state. You cannot shortcut the sponge.
I love that. You cannot shortcut the sponge, and that perfectly sets up Robert Greene's warning in the essay. Greene argues that the very desire to find a shortcut makes a person totally unsuited for mastery.
Oh, for sure.
A shortcut is effectively, trying to buy the championship trophy without ever running the race. It's wanting the absolute confidence of Kobe in the arena without enduring the crushing humility of his early morning preparation.
And the dangerous thing about shortcuts is that they often look indistinguishable from the real thing, at least to the outside world.
How so?
Well, because true preparation is invisible. Nobody sees the discarded drafts, the failed business models, or the hours of repetitive drilling. So someone taking a shortcut can fake the performance for a while.
Right, until they find themselves in a high-stakes situation where they don't actually know how to pivot. So if we accept that we must do the invisible work and we master this brutal preparation, human nature inevitably demands a payoff. We want the universe to hand us a receipt for our 4 a.m. sweat.
Of course we do.
But the sources argue that our modern obsession with tracking those results is actually a trap.
Yeah, and this is really the turning point of the essay. It pulls in the novelist Leo Tolstoy and the art critic John Ruskin, who advance this really unsettling claim. They say truly great deeds have incredibly remote consequences.
Okay.
Ruskin actually takes it a step further. He states that if you can actually see all the consequences of your actions are likely of no real use.
Wait, we need to pause and let that breathe for a second. The visibility of a consequence is evidence that the action producing it was small. That is a completely paradigm-shifting idea.
It really is.
Let's ground that. Think about a high school teacher who has a brief, difficult conversation with a struggling student about their potential. The teacher might never see that student again. But 20 years later, that student draws on that exact conversation to endure a grueling medical residency and goes on to develop a breakthrough treatment for a disease. The teacher has absolutely zero visibility on that massive consequence.
Right, which completely challenges the core operating system of our modern world.
Exactly my point. And I have to push back here. In our current landscape, we are drowning in key performance indicators, instant ROI, quarterly earnings reports.
Dashboards for everything.
Yes. If I am running a team or launching a product and I can't measure the result of my hard work on a dashboard, how do I know it even matters? Does it even exist if the data doesn't validate it?
Well, that assumes the limits of our spreadsheets are the limits of reality.
Oof.
And the essay actually uses the Talmud to counter that exact anxiety. The Talmud argues that the calculus of ultimate outcomes is for forces much larger than us. It's really a question of scale.
Mm-hmm.
A quarterly earnings report is a very, very small scale.
Right.
And Lao Tzu expands on this by advising that a wise person lives in their inner life and denies the outer life.
I always struggle with that phrasing, honestly. What does denying the outer life actually look like for someone, dealing with rush hour traffic and mortgage payments?
I hear you. It means recognizing where your actual leverage is. Your true leverage is entirely internal. It's your integrity, your focus, your resilience, how you treat the colleagues sitting across from you. That is the inner life.
Got it.
The outer life, the promotion, the viral social media metrics, the stock price, that is all downstream. Tolstoy is reminding us that if you demand a visible, trackable ROI for every effort, you will subconsciously restrict your ambitions.
Nicer.
You will only undertake projects small enough and safe enough to be measured within your lifetime.
Wow. But that introduces a terrifying psychological void. I mean, if I cannot be motivated by the dopamine hit of tracking my external rewards, what actually drives a person to get up at 4 a.m.?
Right.
What fuels that grueling preparation if we just, throw away the scoreboard?
Well, the essay addresses that void with this really visceral parable from the spiritual teacher Anthony DeMello. He tells the story of a disciple who goes to his master every day asking, "How do I find God?"
Okay.
And the master repeatedly says, "Through desire."
Vague.
Right. The disciple grows frustrated, thinking, "I already desire it. Why isn't anything happening?" The master just waits. Then one afternoon, they are bathing in the river, and suddenly the master forces the disciple's head underwater and literally holds it there.
Well, that's a pretty extreme pedagogical technique.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So the disciple is thrashing, terrified, fighting with everything he has. Finally, the master pulls him up. The disciple is just gasping, coughing up water, and the master asks, "Why did you struggle?"
Yeah.
The disciple yells, "Because I was gasping for air." The master just looks at him and says, "When you gasp for God the way you gasped for air, you will have found him."
Wow. That distinction is everything. It completely redefines what we call desire.
It really does.
I'll give you a slightly less profound example. A few years ago, I bought this gorgeous vintage Stratocaster guitar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I told everyone I desired to learn how to play, but in reality, it was just a polite preference. I wanted the aesthetic of being a guitar player when I had free time on a Sunday afternoon.
Let me guess, it gathered dust.
Oh, completely gathered dust. Because a polite preference is completely different from a biological urgency. Urgency is like being stranded in a foreign city, your phone is dead, someone is deeply injured, and you absolutely must find a hospital.
Right.
One's a whim, the other reorganizes your entire nervous system because you have no other choice.
Exactly. And most of what we call ambition, wanting to be a better leader, wanting to write a novel, wanting to be healthier, it's just a polite preference.
Yeah.
We pursue it when the conditions are favorable.
When it's easy.
Yeah. But the essay highlights this striking aphorism. Your largest fear carries your greatest growth.
I love that.
Fear represents the current boundary of your identity. To cross that boundary, to actually mutate into a new version of yourself, it requires more than a preference. It requires that gasping urgency. You have to need the transformation like oxygen.
Okay, so urgency is the spark, it's the ignition.
Right.
But practically speaking, I can't live my normal Tuesday afternoon in a state of drowning, gasping adrenaline. My adrenal glands would burn out in a week.
Oh, totally. You'd be exhausted.
We have to somehow domesticate that intense drive into something sustainable.
Which perfectly transitions us from the philosophy of desire down to the gritty reality of daily habits. The essay introduces this strengths coach, Dan John, who developed a concept he calls shark habits.
I found this fascinating. A shark habit is based on the idea that when a shark takes a bite of its prey, it is one complete, definitive bite.
Right.
It doesn't nibble, swim away, circle back to think about it. Yep. Applied to your workflow, a shark habit means taking one final bite out of a task. You open an email, you deal with it immediately. You get an invitation, you RSVP right then and there.
It is a ruthless elimination of deferred decisions. And Dan John connects this to a broader philosophy he calls the 40% lifestyle calculus.
What's that?
He breaks down human longevity and success, noting that roughly 50% is pure genetics and 10% is blind luck.
Variables we have absolutely zero control over.
Precisely. But that remaining 40% is entirely composed of unsexy, compounding daily choices. It's wearing your seatbelt, it's exercising for 100 minutes a week, it's going to the dentist.
Right.
None of these actions will get you a magazine cover, but they are the literal ground you cultivate.
Let me push back on that, though. Dan John's mentor told him to make himself a slave to good habits. Honestly, the idea of being a slave to automated one-bite systems sounds miserable. Doesn't that turn you into a rigid robot? Doesn't ruthlessly systematizing your day kill all room for spontaneity and creative thinking?
It feels counterintuitive, I know. But the behavioral theorist Simon Sinek argues that the exact opposite is true. Sinek notes that the feeling of being overwhelmed isn't usually solved by creating a more complex master plan. It is solved by less deferral. Every time you say, I'll figure out that project tomorrow, you aren't just delaying the work, you are creating a background hum of mental clutter. It operates like a constant tax on your attention.
It makes me think of carrying a dozen open, leaky cups of water across a crowded room.
Oh, that's a great image.
The sheer physical tension and focus required just to keep them balanced prevents you from having a conversation, enjoying the music, or doing anything else. The cups consume all your bandwidth.
That is a perfect analogy. By establishing shark habits, you aren't becoming a robot. You are setting the cups down.
Yeah.
You are taking minor decisions off the table entirely, which liberates your cognitive bandwidth to be genuinely spontaneous and creative in the areas that actually matter.
But here is where we hit a really unexpected and frankly dangerous turn in the source material.
Yeah, things take the turn here.
Think about the kind of person we have just built through this conversation. Someone who has done the grueling, invisible preparation, someone who operates with gasping urgency, who has eliminated mental clutter through shark habits, and who possesses the unshakable inner confidence of Kobe Bryant.
A powerhouse.
Exactly. When you master your inner life to that degree, you project a massive aura of certainty. And in an uncertain, chaotic world, certainty is a tractor beam. People will naturally flock to you, which introduces a profound vulnerability.
It really opens the door to the dark arts of manipulation. The essay turns to Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, specifically Law 27. Greene identifies a fundamental, almost tragic, human weakness. He says the human nervous system cannot stand the emptiness of doubt. People have a desperate, aching need to believe in something that offers structure.
We want a map. We want an authority figure to absorb our anxiety and tell us everything is going to be okay.
Exactly. And Green's Machiavellian advice is to exploit that biological craving. He advises leaders to become the focal point of that longing. If you offer people a cause, a rigid system, or a grand vision, they won't just follow you. They will fight for you. They will elevate you to a cult-like status.
And you see this constantly at the highest levels of corporate leadership and political maneuvering.
Oh,
We aren't just talking about like a fitness influencer selling a diet plan.
no.
We are talking about charismatic founders who demand 80-hour work weeks and total ideological devotion from their employees. They exploit their team's deeply rooted need for belonging and certainty, basically positioning themselves as the sole arbiter of reality, like, follow my vision and your career will have ultimate meaning.
Yeah, it's insidious. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the essay doesn't abandon us in Green's cynicism. It immediately provides an ethical counterweight. It places the Sufi mystic Rumi right alongside Green. Rumi offers a totally different approach to having influence. He says, let silence be the art you practice. The manipulative leader is always broadcasting, always tightening their grip, always needing to be the loudest voice in the room just to maintain the illusion of control.
Right.
But the true sage goes quiet. Genuine wisdom is transmitted through presence, not through a megaphone.
I love that. And Miguel de Cervantes reinforces that by reminding us that all that glitters is not gold. It's a vital warning for you as the listener. Defending yourself against manipulative leaders isn't about becoming a hardened cynic.
No.
It's about developing the discernment to recognize the difference between a leader who is challenging you to grow your own inner life and a leader who is just hijacking your nervous system's need for certainty to build their own empire.
And developing that discernment requires a very specific, active practice of empathy. The essay highlights the work of author Ryan Holiday and Rabbi Joshua Liebman. They argue that perspective is not a mood or a fleeting thought. It must be a physical action. Physical action meaning what? Well, Holiday uses the example of trying to truly understand your child. He advises parents not to just abstractly remember what it was like to be 7 years old. He says you must physically go into their room and lay down in their tiny bed.
Wow. That is where the concept of show don't tell becomes real. When you lay in that bed, you suddenly realize how menacing the shadows from the street lamp look stretching across the wall from that low angle. You physically put on their heavy winter coat and realize how suffocating and restrictive it feels on a small frame. You are experiencing empathy at the level of physical sensation, feeling the literal weight of their world.
Liebman refers to this rigorous practice as tolerance, but he defines it very carefully. He says tolerance is the positive, cordial effort to understand another person's beliefs and habits without necessarily sharing them.
Oh, that's an important distinction.
Huge. You can vehemently disagree with someone's worldview, but the active, physical effort to climb into their perspective is what keeps you grounded. That practice prevents you from turning into a manipulator, and it insulates you from falling victim to one.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We have covered incredible, varied terrain for you today. We started with Kobe's terrifyingly humble preparation. We explored the biological necessity of sleep. We redefined desire with a drowning disciple. We set down our leaky cups with shark habits. And we navigated the magnetic dangers of certainty through physical empathy.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. How does this massive web of ideas tie together?
Well, it brings us perfectly full circle to where we began with Marcus Aurelius. Every single one of these disciplines, the 4 a.m. footwork drills, the refusal of shortcuts, the one-bite habits, the conscious silence, they all point toward the exact same objective, cultivating the ground of your character.
Character isn't a shiny trophy you get to hold up at the end of your career. It is just the dirt you have to rake every single day, whether anyone is watching or not.
Exactly. Tony Robbins is quoted in the essay, and he distills this brilliantly. He points out that the only true security a person can achieve in this life doesn't come from guaranteeing a specific outcome.
Because we can't control the outcome.
Right. True security comes from the quiet, internal knowledge that you are improving yourself daily. Your ultimate safety is found in the quality of the invisible work you do on the ground.
But that leads to the final, and undoubtedly the most difficult, instruction in this entire philosophy. You prepare the ground meticulously, you act with precision and empathy, you build your character, and then
you have to let the ripples go.
Yeah.
You have to accept that your actions are going out into a vast, complex world, and they will outrun your line of sight. you will not get to see how the story ends.
To briefly recap the journey we've mapped out for you today, we have unpacked the powerful paradox that true effectiveness comes from relentless, humble preparation, coupled with a total detachment from visible results.
Beautifully said.
Whether you are avoiding the seductive trap of shortcuts, managing your cognitive load with shark habits, or practicing physical empathy to survive in a world of manipulators, it all ultimately demands that you tend your own ground and ignore the scoreboard.
The fruit of your life is very real, but it grows from the health of the dirt, not from your anxiety about the harvest.
Before we wrap up, there is one final provocative thought hidden in the source material that we haven't touched on yet. The essay briefly points to the ancient book of Ecclesiastes. It observes a humbling reality: generations come and generations go, but the earth abides forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and the universe is completely, utterly indifferent to our quarterly metrics or our social media dashboards.
That's true.
It forces you to wonder, if the universe functions perfectly without needing a spreadsheet to prove its worth, maybe our desperate, modern obsession with building a highly visible legacy is the ultimate trap. Maybe the frantic need to be remembered is the exact thing preventing us from doing the quiet, unglamorous, untrackable deeds, like maintaining our honesty when it costs us a promotion, that actually hold the fabric of the world together. Something to mull over as you go about your day.
Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. We'll catch you next time.